Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Shisui Uchiha Trained Naruto Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. One of the two most promising talents of the famed Uchiha clan. As a descendant of Kagami Uchiha, a man who learned and grew under Tobirama Senju's tutelage, the second Hokage. Shisui was a ninja very similar to his relative, recognized by the village's current leader as a man who could transcend clans, boundaries to support the village. Even as a 13-year-old, Shisui's grasp of a shinobi's duties already resembled Hokage's current. Putting clan names and beliefs behind oneself to support the village was an ideal that Shisui obeyed perfectly. He had already proved his devotion to his home with his performances outside of the village walls. Holding the moniker, Shisui of the Body Flicker, at such a young age, he drew the attention of all in the more distinguished ranks. As a special Jonin, his decision-making skills were on par with that of a seasoned shinobi. These decision-making skills were brought into question when he spotted a furious child attempting a simple clone technique. The third training ground had become golden as the disappearing light settled on the surrounding tree line. The boy's canary locks, even with the tan glow, was his most distinguishable feature. He's struggling with the basic clone jutsu, figured Shisui. He had no issues with the technique himself, just like the wider population. It didn't require a great deal of concentration, it was just a glorified chakra control technique. The young Sharingan wielder had lost track of time, not realizing he had been watching the child for close to half an hour until the boy had turned to leave. The sun had well and truly left by now, and further proof of the time was the disheveled look on the blonde's face. Shisui acknowledged skill but respected effort. This child seemed to be a complete opposite of another boy, one that he looked towards like a younger brother. Itachi seemed pensive whenever he trained, as if he was unsure of his reasons. That and everything the younger Uchiha attempted came so easily it was almost as if he already knew it. This boy was different. The drive was evident. He knew why he trained, there was no doubt of that. Another separation from Itachi was his inherent lack of talent. No one should struggle with the clone technique, it was ridiculous. Finally, the face. Apart from the apparent disparities in features, golden against black, cobalt against coal, whiskers. The boy's face would flip through hundreds of visible emotions. Itachi's was an ever impassive stone wall. Seconds after the disappointing attempt at training, the boy's face lit up with joy only to fall into a painful grimace as he clutched his stomach. Hungry, Shisui guessed. After what the boy had just put himself through, it was a great way to work up an appetite. Unconsciously, the inquisitive teenager followed his junior. Either skipping through the trees or hopping from building to building, Shisui didn't take his eyes off of his target. The child seemed to freeze mid-step as if something had caught his attention. Shisui racked his senses to find what had drawn the boy in. He couldn't see anyone around. He couldn't hear anything in particular outside of the regular commotion of the nearby market area. The temperature hadn't suddenly dropped. What was it? Just as the boy took a sharp left turn, he was given his answer. A salty smell invaded his nose. Even the prodigy could admit it was intoxicating. The pure elation written all over the boy's face was contagious as Shisui's features mimicked that of the golden-haired child. The pair wove in between alleys. That was until they came to a familiar set of flaps. Shisui had only visited once, that was under the invitation of his superior, Kakashi Hatake. The boy dug his heels in and slid to a stop, his back almost slamming into the stand's wall. His breathing was shallow and rushed. Clearly excited, he peeked his nose around the corner. A deep suck of air broke through his rapid inhalings, taking in the natural aroma from the source. A longing sigh escaped his lips as his breathing settled, sliding down the wall. A content smile smoothed along his lips. This continued for close to another 5 minutes. He would lean around the wall, take a deep breath and return to his spot. Why not go in? It was at this point that the young Jonin took in the younger boy's entire appearance. Short green pants and a white top with the same symbol emblazoned their flak jackets, both considerably worn, much more than what should have been there from his previous training. Uzumaki. Shisui had a stunning sense of vision, to many that seemed obvious. His clan was renowned for their visual prowess after all, but that wasn't where it ended. His skill in reading people and the situation was one of the reasons for his promotion to Jonin. Shisui formed a one-handed ram seal. In a rush of speed and a swirl of wind, the shaggy-haired boy appeared next to the seated child. If you want some, I'll pay. The boy's shoulders tightened as his breath hitched, craning his head to look at the softly smiling older boy. He began to quake, wide-eyed as his pupils darted around the alley. Shisui's smile faltered as he analyzed the boy's flight response. He's looking for a way out. In an attempt to rush off, the whiskered boy shot to his feet. It was a frivolous effort as he found himself pushed back down, leaning against the wall. Where do you think you're going? The younger of two began to get desperate, frantically clawing at anything to get his hands on. By now Shisui was horrified. The boy hadn't spoken a word and was trying his hardest to run away. No child should be like forward. He gripped the young boy's shoulders firmly. Whoa, sorry about that. I didn't mean to scare you like that. I'm sorry, Shisui conveyed. How about I make it up to you? Ramen. The wide eyes pinpointed the elder's once again warm smile. His fearful stare molded itself into that of confusion. You wanted some of that, didn't you? Slow, cautious nods quickly sped into a rapid and eager agreement. Good. Why don't we go in then? Without argument, the boy skipped to his side. Attempting to thaw any remaining ice between them, he placed his hand down on the boy's shoulder. Shisui fought the urge to become aggressive as the boy stiffened, halting his movements. The golden-haired child eyed the appendage warily, refusing to turn his head as he flicked his gaze between the hand and its owner. The young Uchiha couldn't help the small smile that softened his features as the child next to him relaxed. Turning around the corner, Shisui pushed the flaps aside. His progress with the boy went up in smoke as he once again fought to escape his grip. He wondered what could have caused yet another swing in the child's mood. Welcome. What can I do you for? The irrepressible shop owner was renowned for his friendliness. If a customer weren't happy with their meal, they would always enjoy the conversations. Shisui quickly picked up on the defensive behaviors the young boy exhibited. It was clear that the man's personality would prove too much for the whiskered child. He needed to be eased into confrontations. I'll have pork ramen, thank you. What about you, kiddo? Golden locks poked around the prodigy's waist. A slight ruffle drew Shisui's attention down to his young companion. The grip on his shirt tightened as a finger prodded itself against the older boy. Yes. Slowly, the extended pointer directed itself towards the small menu. Tuki. The owner took the hint. Pork ramen. The amused question only caused a shake of the head and a flick of the eyes upwards. Beef. Tuki knew that he'd gone the wrong way, beef being bellow pork. He just wanted the boy out of his shell. Once again, a shake of golden locks was his answer. The flick of his head upwards was more exaggerated this time. Tonkatsu. By now Shisui had picked up on the man's game. Still unsure of how the boy would react, he decided to watch it play out. Sapphire eyes filled with childish fury told him everything. Okay, the ramen admitted defeat. Miso ramen. It was a delightful sight. The joy returned to his eyes made the pair of inhabitants smile unconsciously. Ayame. Tuki called out, startling the young customer. I'll get the pot boiling, you get the pork. You got it. Coming. In stumbled a young brunette. On her shoulder was a packet of the delectable white meat. Bolting around the corner, she began to prepare their meals. In her rush, Ayame had utterly ignored the two customers. Good to see you again, Ayame, Shisui began. The younger girl had been quite an amusing encounter last time he ate at the establishment. Whipping her head upwards, she made eye contact with the older of the two. Silence reigned as the young ramen chef's cheeks burnt, not only with embarrassment. Hi, Shisui, good to see you too. Fighting to pull her eyes away from the shaggy-haired Uchiha, She glanced at the child next to him. The boy had been eyeing the interaction with apparent confusion. The brunette studied the boy. Familiar blonde hair reminded her of a sunflower, squinted cobalt orbs. All this in a tiny package. Oh, and the whiskers. You are adorable. Come here. Leaping over the counter, she tackled the young boy, pressing her face to hers. Shisui, without thinking, leapt up from his seat. He was just about to get the boy to talk. Just as he was about to pull the two apart, he noticed that the boy wasn't fighting back. Ayame couldn't help but feel the warmth radiating from the boy. It was a relatively cold night, but the boy's clothes felt like they had just come out of the dryer. In fact, his short arms, which could barely wrap around her figure, contently holding on with a small smile. Never mind getting him to talk, this made the young prodigy's day. The lovable pout told Ayame everything as she pulled him away, holding him at arm's length. And who are you? She asked before rolling her head to look at the other customer. You never told me you had a brother. Ayame, do we look like brothers? While their features had nothing in common, the less than amused look from both boys were identical. You bet. Close to questioning her sanity, he glanced over at the youngest of the group. The widest smile he had ever seen, threatening to split the young blonde's face. Without fail, his features mirrored that of his companion. I guess I can see that too, Shisui jested. What do you think, Lil, bro? Eyes like dinner plates were what answered his question. The boy was floored. No one other than Gramps talked to him like this, and suddenly 3 people were treating him so warmly. A constricting pain made itself known in his chest, but he didn't need to wince, he was already smiling. Ayame, Shisui politely questioned. Yes. Who's looking after the pork? The young Uchiha returned with his own question. Me. Tuki entered. Orders up. The clink of porcelain hitting the tabletop was music to the youngest ears. Leaning over, he let the steam coming off his dinner flow past his face. After some consideration, he looked over to Shisui's meal, the hopeful pointing of his chopstick left an unasked question. You want some of mine? You haven't even tried yours, he attempted to joke. Unfortunately, the child grew sullen once more, clearly not wanting to appear selfish or unappreciative. That's fine though, of course, you can have some of mine. Ignoring the small and polite refusal from the blonde, he placed 3 of his pork slices on top of the boy's noodles. The youngest customer looked like he had just been given the world. Shisui could read nothing but pure elation on his face. He wouldn't have it any other way. Well, Ayame looked over nervously. A first impression was always important. While there was likely no weight to the boy's opinion, she just wanted to make him happy. Shisui chuckled at the child's attempt to use chopsticks. He was already a small boy, translating to his fingers. The chopsticks were simply too large. It also looked like he hadn't been taught how to use them. While most would be shocked to learn this, the kind Uchiha saw this as an opportunity to leave the whiskered child with a good memory. Open up, he spoke softly. The boy had shown similarities to a deer. His flight response was emphatic. Naruto's indignant stare towards the dastardly wooden sticks was amusing as he gave up his losing fight. Swirling his own chopsticks through the miso broth, Shisui picked up a small grouping of noodles only for a disappointing look to run over the boy's face. He alleviated with a raised hand and dug deeper. He plucked a much more sizable amount of the starch-filled goodness. He gave it a small shake in offering. This time, the pleased smile was unmistakable. All but jumping at the steaming noodles, Shisui pulled them away at the last moment, smirking at the enthusiasm. You've got to blow on them first. They're still quite hot. To emphasize his point, he gave a light blow of his own. Moving the noodles in front of the child, he gave a soft blow. Ayame giggled as his lips closed and the boy accidentally blew a raspberry. I think that's good enough, give it a go. There was no hesitation as the end of the chopsticks were engulfed by the boy's young mouth. None were left wondering about the boy's decision. The threat of noodles spilling was amusing as his grin molded his face. Tuki had no doubts that the boy would love it, she did too. While a relatively silent affair, The group continued for some time. Shisui was shocked to see the sheer amount of ramen the boy could eat. Where did he put it? While he still hadn't spoken a word, it was evident that he had enjoyed himself. That's all I can do for you, sorry. Tuki interrupted. Knowing who he was, it hurt to see the boy look so distraught, similar to a kicked puppy. But, he continued holding up his large spoon. Just know that you're welcome here whenever you want, hungry or not, the shop's always open for you. Unable to answer, he gave a small nod, his eyes buried under his golden hair. It was hiding the hot globs of tears that stung the corners of his eyes, threatening to fall. Make sure you come back. We've got so many more flavors for you to try. Ayame tried to sound cheery, but the young girl was quite saddened by having to see the two boys off. Once again, he nodded, not wanting to show any weakness. Ah, Ayame, don't worry, I'm sure your boyfriends will be back soon. Isn't that right, boys? Ignoring the scandalized cries of the brunette, Shisui chuckled and answered the owner's question. I'm sure we will. Kiddo here enjoyed even more than I did. All present could see the warmth creep up the boy's neck until it disappeared underneath his golden hair. Any more and it might dye his hair orange. Anyway, we really should be going our separate ways, let's go, little one. A reassuring hand stopped the protests. He leaned down to match the younger's height. Wave goodbye, it's polite. Shisui's onyx eyes closed and crinkled with warmth. The blonde only managed to raise his hand before Ayame brought him into another crushing hug. Once again, she reveled in his ridiculous warmth as he in her affection. Promise me you'll come back soon. She felt him nod into her shoulder, pulling away. She smiled. Good. Now get home safe, alright. We will, Shisui assured. I know you just want to be cuddled by such a beautiful girl, but we really need to go. The owner and young Jonan chuckled at the two luminescent red faces of self-righteous anger. He managed to pluck the boy from the girl's fixed grip with a small amount of coercing. Waving to the pair, Shisui and his young companion trudged away from the modest ramen stand. Let me walk you home. He began. He knew of the child's situation, and its familial consequences. Itachi's had been quite passionate about the boy. Apparently, he and his mother knew of the boy's parents' identity. Unsurprisingly, the blue-eyed boy became reluctant at the loss of the company. I know, but I can't stick around forever. But the boy didn't back down. In a flash he had gripped the bottom hem of the older boy's hold. Wasn't anything that Shisui couldn't shrug off, but it gave more weight to a concerning likelihood. The boy had no one. He couldn't, as a shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village, let a child go through what was likely happening now. I'm sorry, Shisui admitted, but I can't stay at your home. He knew he was playing a cruel game, but his intentions were pure. He cursed himself at the blonde's reaction, complete and utter dejection. The once glowing eyes filled only with joy darkened. Almost to the point where Shisui swore he had only seen darker orbs amongst his clan. The slow release of his shirt was as much as the young Uchiha could take. But, Shisui began, drawing the attention of the stilled boy. I'm sure my parents would love for you to stay over. His mother and father had always stressed the importance of never judging a book by its cover and only to make a decision when the full story has been told. While not as much as a critical thinker as Itachi was at his age, the boy still had learned plenty of common sense. Even if the older boy had been welcoming and treated him to a meal, he would still be entering a stranger's house. This train of thought was quickly stomped on at the possibility of new friends, a broad smile giving his answer. Seeing the boy's inner conflict disappear within seconds made Shisui question his forethought. Though it was unrealistic that anyone would be like Itachi, the younger Uchiha was indeed an anomaly. Wonderful, we will go to your home first. We can collect some clothes for you. His answer wasn't acknowledged as the younger of the pair's smile faltered. It wasn't a long walk to the blonde's apartment, the time was filled with a comfortable silence. The young Jonin amused himself by watching the younger's face filter through a mass of emotions. The way his brow creased, and lips pointed when thinking about something that annoyed him, and his ability to count the number of teeth when his grin shone. Studying the apartment complex, Shisui acknowledged it as quite regular. A simple three-story block was a common residence for orphans or families with less capital. Lucky the village did not divide ninja and civilians, residencies, which only causes a divide between the two populations. Living together showed those with regular working lives that shinobi were human too. The shaggy-haired Uchiha was about to make his way up the flight of stairs when he felt a small tug at the hem of his shirt. Turning around, he saw his companion shake his head, refusing to meet his eyes. Taking the hint, he relented. Okay, I'll be waiting here for you. Better be quick. Like a missile, the boy sped off, not wanting to waste his new companion's time. He grabbed his backpack, slinging in a pair of clothing as well as his pajamas. He couldn't help the building giggle at the thought of a sleepover. He'd learned that it was an activity friends perform. The following thoughts only led to the building of heat in his chest. Happy with his packing, he zipped up the backpack. Glancing around the apartment, he continued to smile. After only knowing this as his house became quite suffocating, an escape was precisely what he needed. With a click, the door was locked. Sliding the key into his pocket, the whiskered boy bolted back, as fast as his little legs could manage. Sliding to halt, the boy's weight almost made him topple over as he stopped in front of an amused Shisui. Ready? He asked. The young blonde's answer was a short, animated nod. Good, he returned with his own nod. Let's get going. Even though I'm a jonin, my mother still worries about me. He grumbled, though he loved her more for it. Well, follow me, it's quite a hike to the Uchiha district. If possible, the boy's excitement grew. He had never been to a clan district. He heard that even though they were part of the same village, the clan district is organized to the clan's preference. A hike was, being twice his height and an already seasoned shinobi, Shisui had no problems. The child and his little legs, on the other hand, were struggling. It appeared that the boy's apartment and the Uchiha district were significantly separated, namely by the entire village. The elder of the pair noticed this when they were passing the Nara compound, located quite centrally in the village. Chuckling at the pink-cheeked and exhausted boy, he looked almost dead on his feet. How are you doing? You look a little tired down there, he idly commented. The boy simply huffed and slumped his shoulders. It wasn't until further down the road that fatigue completely caught up with the whiskered boy. Becoming second nature, Shisui felt a small hand on his shirt. Glancing over his shoulder, he couldn't stop the small smile from gracing his features. Eyes closed, and a large yawn escaped the younger's mouth. He didn't even think about it, it was just instinct. Stopping, he placed his hand on the boy's golden child's eyes fought to open only for them to give the shaggy-haired Uchiha a confused squint. Being almost twice his height, Shisui had to kneel to come close to eye level. Hop on, he spoke, showing his back to the younger boy. As if on autopilot, the boy flopped against him. Too tired to even hold on, he continued to lean against him. An understanding smile flashed across the Sharingan wielder's face. Bringing his arms underneath the boy's short legs, he hoisted him up, backpack and all. Arms limply falling over the older boy's shoulders, the young boy nodded off. If Shisui was feeling the cold beforehand, it vanished as soon as the young boy made contact. The comfort of another person was better than almost anything. Even though asleep, the boy recognized this and nuzzled his cheek into the older boy's back. Tired, Shisui answered. After that training, at his age. I'm not surprised. Feeling no need to maintain the same pace, he picked up his speed. As he continued to move, the air whipped past the pair. That was until the young Uchiha recognized the familiar gate of his clan's compound. Even in the already dislocated compound, Shisui's house found itself towards the outer region. His mother always enjoyed the ability to step away from the village and relax. She got it from her father, Kagami. Her relations with Shikaku, the Nara clan's head, allowed her to partake in strolls through their forests. It was a simple home, a single-story assortment of traditional Japanese design. White-walled with dark, exposed wooden supports. Tracking through the front garden, Shisui followed the stone path carefully to wake the excitable bundle attached to him. As he approached the front door, he knocked 3 times. After a few seconds passed, he slid the articulate door open. Knocking his sandals off, the shaggy-haired boy made his way to the kitchen. "Welcome home, Shisui," a soft voice cut through the sound of sizzling meat. "Is everything all right?" "Yes, mother, everything's fine," Shisui responded with a grin. "I just picked up a stray while I was out." He shifted the child on his back for emphasis, just enough for Shisui to catch a glimpse of the golden mop now resting over her son's shoulder. "I see," the mother began. "And may I ask why you dragged an unconscious boy into our home?" "Do I need a reason?" he quipped before taking a moment to consider his answer and breathe. Honestly, he needed someone. Dear God, Shisui, you're such a bleeding heart, you know. Itachi first, now this child, don't make it a habit. She pointed out amusingly, you must have got it from me. Now set him down and wake him for dinner. Wordlessly, the young Jonin did as his mother asked, laying the new addition to the household down on the couch before entering. He'll be staying the night too. I've already made sure he has his clothes, so no need to worry about that. Shisui only hummed approvingly as she returned to stirring the pot. Father, Shisui finally questioned. Bedroom, as usual, his mother huffed out tiredly. He set down his shinobi gear and leather harness before reaching his parents' room. Father, he seemed to ask no one in particular. The moderately sized room had only a small bedside light on, giving off a subdued setting. I keep telling you, it's Dad. Came the tired but chirpy voice from the other side of the turned chair. So, you brought that boy round, did you? What brought this on? There was no hiding from his father's sensory abilities. Even as an amputee with declining health, it was still a frightening skill. I offered him a home for tonight, is all, Shisui spoke calmly as he shuffled around to claim the empty mug. More tea. Milk. The silent nods were all he got. A minute passed before he returned to the room, tea made. The floorboards creaking under each step, the voice of his father caused him to stop at the doorway. Why does he need a home? Does he not have one of his own? He questioned flippantly, as if numb to the boy's situation. No, father, you know he does not. Please do not drive him away. I will not be associated with hurting him. Shisui bit out. His father seemed so ignorant, like he didn't care about others. Mum will bring dinner to you, don't worry about moving around too much. With that, the only child of the family left his father in silence. Good work, Shisui. A soft aroma wafted through the room, the young boy's nose twitched, taking in the promise of yakisoba. Eyes fluttered open to see a strange room. As he studied it all, a presence made itself known. Identifying themselves as the older boy, they began reaching out to him. Reflexively he leapt backwards. He tried to scramble away. Finding no grip on the leather couch, he simply fell off and landed painfully. Face first. Sorry about that, I didn't mean to startle you. Shisui began. Slowly he peeled his younger companion's face from the wooden floorboards. I was supposed to wake you for dinner, but it seems there is no need for that now. The whiskered boy's wary gaze was chipped away as the older boy spoke. If you're wondering where you are in my family's home, and dinner's ready. He had already fallen asleep. What kind of introduction was that? This was terrible. Someone had given him a chance to stay with him, and he'd fallen asleep. As the boy's train of thought continued to sink, his mood visibly souring as his face fell. Don't worry about anything, the shaggy-haired Uchiha interrupted. He could see the downtrodden expression the boy wore. My mother's in the kitchen now preparing supper. The boy spoke softly, extended a hand. Nodding, the golden-haired boy took the offered appendage. They wove through the modest home, the youngest taking in the pictures that decorated the walls. That was when I graduated from the academy. He could see the thoughts that passed through the whiskered child. From the previous training and the admiration evident in his eyes, he could see that the boy wanted to follow his line of work. Sensing the confusion, he offered an answer. I wasn't much older than you when I graduated. I was only 7 in fact. Expecting that to fan the boy's flames, it only dampened what had grown. He was clearly feeling inadequate. Who wouldn't? Talk of early graduates was a leading reason for many children to leave the academy. When you are shown the staggering dissonances when others' success highlights your weaknesses, it can be quite daunting. You seem like you want to be a ninja, is that it? That reignited a fire in the boy's gut. Hands clenched in front of him, eyes burning with drive. It was impressive that a child that age could hold such intensity. I see. In that case, don't worry about not graduating early, it only happens in rare cases unless we're at war. He patted the young boy on the head, acting as if ignorant of the indignant pout. Dinner's ready, came the cheerful voice. Before he could argue, the youngest was plucked and dragged towards the kitchen. Come on, we don't want it getting cold on us. The boy couldn't bring himself to argue. Shisui took in the concerning image of a young child firmly attached to Shisui's leg. Hello, you two, it's all served. Take your seats. The young Uchiha, without warning, clutched at the boy attached to him. The young boy made a soft thud as he was plopped down on his seat. With both residents of the house making their way to their seats to begin dinner, they clapped their hands together in prayer. Thanks for the meal, they quietly chorused, much to the youngest's confusion. He had been conflicted as to whether he should just dive into his food. That's what you say before a meal, it's a sign of respect. Too abashed to meet Sisui's eyes, he nodded and clasped his hands together. After a silent prayer, they dug in. Shisui and his new friend found themselves readily enjoying the prepared yakisoba buns. Once again, there were multiple attempts to coax a word out of a shy child. Shisui never told me your name, would you mind telling me? The self-loathing was written all over the older boy's face as he was currently fighting the urge to slam his face through the dining table. It was basic etiquette to ask for someone's name, whether you knew it or not. Once again, there was no answer. Shisui yielded with a disappointed sigh. The silence was cut short by a soft tapping of a finger on the maple table, both sets of trained eyes locked onto what the wickered boy was motioning at. A small slice of fish cake was currently under the boy's index finger. Naruto. That's your name, is it? The sullen nod confirmed the question. Shisui knew this, of course, overhearing Itachi's murmurings told him as much. Fish cake, huh, the young prodigy joked, it suits you, after the way you inhaled that ramen. The glare that he received only fueled his laughing. When the pouting didn't cease, the two Uchiha relented. Sorry, he soothed with pleading hands. Maelstrom, then. The affirmative nod was instantaneous. The late-night dinner passed quickly and in silence, which Naruto appreciated. Many people conversing made him nervous. It wasn't until Shisui had left and his mother was collecting the cutlery that she finally spoke up. I hear you're staying the night. I'll make sure to prepare a futon for you. Does that sound okay? Shisui wished the boy would do more than nod, at least Itachi would answer with words. Go find Shisui, I'll call you when your bed's ready. Sliding off his chair, Naruto started looking for the shaggy-haired boy. The tapping of a child's feet filled the house as Naruto attempted to track down Shisui. Meanwhile, the little blonde was reveling in the size of the home. Never had he felt so small. Out here, a voice cut in from outside of the door. After locating his target, the young boy joined him in enjoying the calm night wind. You were training last night, right? Naruto couldn't hide his surprise at the older boy's deduction. The slack jaw and slow nods provided the young Uchiha with his answer. Don't act so surprised, your clothes are torn and covered in dirt, you are too. Shisui licked his thumb and proceeded to rub the dirt that had dried on Naruto's cheek. The childish swat of the larger hand failed miserably as the older boy continued to rub his cheek. Well, the academy isn't on tomorrow, so why don't we train together? I can show you some techniques. Shisui needed no answer. It wasn't very long before the mother had finished. A muffled call let them know that much. The scuffle caused by Naruto learning that they would be sharing the room would have been adorable if they didn't have to remake his futon. What is that? They found themselves taking in each other's nightwear. Needless to say, the blonde's nightcap amused the older of the pair. Naruto was by no means embarrassed by his headwear. He loved it. That meant that he would not stand around while someone criticized it. With a huff, he wormed his way into his futon. Good night, Shisui puffed out, diving under his own covers. Sleep seemed to come easy for the older boy, but rest never hit those cobalt orbs. The cool breeze rustled the curtains, unsettling the whiskered boy. Rolling over, he rested his head on his stubby palms as he looked towards the other boy. He's weird, was his educated deduction. This black-haired boy fell into his life, interrupted him while he was enjoying the smell of that ramen stall. He wasn't like anyone he'd met before, not like the old man. He hadn't any reference for what friends were like, no real family. Can't sleep, said the voice that interrupted his thoughts. Rolling his head, he saw the other boy studying the ceiling. Naruto hummed a positive, the most vocal he had been so far. Why's that? Nervous. I can sleep in another room if you'd prefer. A shake of the head made Shisui smile. The blonde couldn't disagree more. He felt secure. He always felt safe. The Hokage made sure of that. How couldn't you when the village leader told you so? But with Shisui, he felt secure in the thought that someone would be there with him when he woke up. Naruto what? When met with a confused stare, he elaborated. What's your surname? You're not just Naruto, are you? Progress continued as an inspired negative met him. What is then? Uzumaki. The bewildered gawk was enough to make Shisui snort to hide his laugh. Don't act so surprised, you are wearing their crest after all. That ceased the young blonde's wonderment and supplied him with realization. That's why Gramps gave it to me, he mentally filled the void of knowledge. You know, the majority of our shinobi wear that crest, your clan was as strong as mine. All Naruto had was questions, too many for his young mind. The young Jonin saw the inner conflict, the rising pressure and decided to intervene. Don't stress so much, I'll help you get some answers tomorrow, he alleviated. Now, sleep, your training will be useless if you can't give it your best. Thank God for short attention spans, like a switch he had put the questions out of thought. Shisui inwardly chuckled as the whiskered cheeks relaxed. Night, came a soft, meek voice. The older boy couldn't wrap his head around how gentle the boy seemed. He wasn't Itachi, that much was obvious. Both were gentle, but one was stoic and the other subdued. No need to continue comparing those two, Shisui decided. Today he had gotten his first word out of his new friend, tomorrow he would draw him further out of his shell. There was no good reason to rush, he was still a child, which could be great with a nudge in the right direction. Naruto. Rousing a young Naruto was like trying to wake a rock. It wasn't until he gave the boy a no-so-gentle nudge that he awoke. Even then, it was only because the push was enough to roll him onto the cold wooden floor. Luckily Shisui had learned his lesson, a new face after waking up could be scary for any young child. Huh, where? The young Uzumaki couldn't piece together where he was. Looking around, he noticed the familiar clan symbol of the Uchiha. Eyeing the bedroom some more, he saw the ruffled bed next to him, even he understood the implication. Good morning, Naruto, Shisui spoke, leaning her head through the doorway as she folded a shirt. Sleep well. Piecing together all that had happened last night, the young blonde gave an enigmatic nod. Good. Get your clothes on. Shisui said he's downstairs waiting for you, something about training. The gentle Uchiha continued to go about her business, humming along. At the prospect of training, a blonde-haired boy ripped through his assorted clothing, plucking what he'd brought to get ready for the day. I need some shuriken, the boy lamented. A loose-fitting orange top, same Uzumaki spiral embroidered on the back draped itself over his shoulders. The hem of his blue shorts hung around his knees, slipping his sandals over his feet he jogged to meet Shisui. You're going to wear those? Clearly referencing his frayed clothing, Shisui halted him. That won't do, an embarrassed Naruto cowered under the disgruntled gaze of the older woman. His stillness reminded her of the boy's situation. Well, then you're in luck. As I refuse to throw any of Shisui's old belongings away, I have some old clothing of his that would fit you perfectly. He wanted to cry, more ever before. Being told that he would never know what it was like to be held by a father and mother that loved him was easier to accept, that was all he'd known until that point. Come on, we don't want to keep that airhead waiting. The gracious woman could feel imaginative bile build in the back of her throat. It was genuinely sickening, a child brought to tears just because he was offered clothing. Leaving the child alone, she rushed to gather what she had promised. Here, unfortunately, Shisui's choice in clothing had never differed. A black, high-collar shirt and gray pants. Shisui removed any chance of refusal from Naruto by leaving before he could protest. The collar ran right up to the bridge of his nose, secreting his whiskered cheeks. Naruto took some comfort in the concealing apparel. Hello mini-me, Shisui said whilst leant up against a nearby tree. It was amusing how well the young blonde filled out his old clothes. Sorry about my mother, she's very attached to my stuff. I'm sure she gave you those, though now that you're wearing my clan's symbol people might really think we're brothers. Shisui noted an upwards twitch on the boy's lips before his expression filled itself with horror. Don't worry about it, we're staying right here. No one should see you wearing that. The blonde's rush to leap out of his shirt stopped with those words. Now, I said I would help with your training, that's what we're going to do. The young Jonin began. What kind of training have you done so far? Eager to show proficiency as a future ninja, Naruto slowly rattled through the clone technique's hand signs. His disappointment in his ill-looking attempt lasted only a moment, that was until he fearfully met Shisui's eyes. Expecting the same cold gaze, he reeled at the new glowing red eyes that the boy exhibited. Sherry, what's it? The Hokage told him an old tale about the Uchiha clan's famed visual prowess. The Sharingan. 3 Tomo circled a regular pupil, drowning in the rest of the scarlet orbs. As one of the 2 founding clans of the Hidden Leaf Village and their dominance during the Warring Clans period, the Uchiha had become renowned for their skill and eyesight. A Kekkei Genkai that ran through the hardened clan's blood gave them an uncanny vision that could predict movements and the formation of ninjutsu techniques by reading the minor directions and the buildup of chakra in the body. After viewing any techniques from the 3 primary shinobi skills, a visual prowess's wielder could mimic down to the most delicate details. On many occasions, it lacked the fair handling that would come with someone who had learned and practiced the jutsu. You have no idea how much chakra you have available to you, do you? Shisui surprised himself with being able to voice that through his stunned stupor. He's already got more chakra than Itachi, and the amount he just put into a single clone. Wow, that was enough to push the pitiful attempts at the clone technique out of his mind. A smile and fists on his hips left no one questioning what the blonde thought. Your control is what you should focus on when you have time. The best is only the best because they are the best at the basics. Naruto was in tune enough to learn that he wouldn't be focusing on flashy techniques. Shisui could see the childish deflation, it was always the same. Today we'll focus on shinobi battle techniques, type 1. Taijutsu, the physical art. That brought the younger boy's hopes back. Even Naruto knew that being a ninja was more than just jutsu. Grandpa Hokage was his main reference point. As an academy student, taijutsu is the most important of the 3 ninja pursuits. Ninjutsu can be combated with ninjutsu. A perceptive ninja with adequate control can diffuse any genjutsu. The lecture was beginning to drag on. Naruto couldn't help but think that he'd received enough lessons in the academy. But, Shisui continued, when you are outmatched in a physical battle, you will always lose. The carrot that the young Jonin had just dangled in front of the blonde filled its purpose. The boy's dreamy adoration showed Shisui how captivated Naruto was. Well, before we begin, let's have a light warm-up. 1. Light warm-up later left a red-faced and panting child. Barely short of breath, Shisui chuckled nervously and scratched the back of his head. Sorry, I forgot that my warm-up might be quite demanding for someone without training. It seemed like Naruto had enough energy to muster an irritated glare. A soft growling continued as the whiskered boy dragged himself to his feet. No need to stay down after all. Anyway, let's go to it, taijutsu. Come at me now. The kind demeanor fell, an impassive wall taking its place. Naruto was too tired to either notice or care, so, with all his junior ferocity, he charged at the young Jonin. As expected, Shisui hummed. Training with Itachi when he was Naruto's age was always scary, a 5-year-old already possessing enough power to disable a grown man. The difference in speed was grounding. He could detach himself enough to study his opponent's unhinged attempt to charge. Enough. The tone was stern, but not harsh. Unfortunately for the shinobi hopeful, Shisui had given him enough time to throw a punch. But when your intended target vanishes in a blur of speed and your weight follows the space, it is hard to regain one's balance. When in combat, always keep your eyes on your opponent, Shisui informed as he caught Naruto by his high collar. Within 5 seconds, the older boy had shown the daunting gap between a prodigy with proven skill and some child with an excess of arrogance. Shisui could feel the lifeless boy hanging limply in his grip. You're not giving up, are you? We've barely started. The young boy clearly had some hurdles to leap with his confidence, anything dissuasive and he'd fall apart. He knew his next move was a reckless one, but he needed to start chipping away at his shell. The fact that he received no answer led him to his choice of words. I see, he began, relinquishing his grip on his short-lived training partner. Collect your clothes, my mother will see you out. His cold tone frightened the younger of the two. With his move made, he robotically trudged towards his family home. Biting his lip, Naruto could only feel an erosive disappointment. The hollow crunch of the grass and leaves under Shisui's feet echoed in his mind. Wait, he finally voiced only for his plea to be lost in the wind. Humoring the boy, the Uchiha halted his movements, but he did not face the quiet child. Wait, this time it left his mouth more forcefully. Please help me, the volume in his voice was gradually rising. Why? And that simply reply tore out all the confidence that Naruto had mustered. By now, Shisui was watching the boy intently. While he was withdrawn, the blonde was visibly contemplating his next words. Because, he breathed out, unable to finish his sentence. Naruto bit his lip, jolting slightly from the pain when he drew blood, running down to his chin. Because, Shisui continued to prod, but he smiled when he glimpsed at the resolve in the boy's cobalt orbs. Luckily for Naruto, the pain had brought him back to his senses. So, with a clear mind and devoid of doubt, Naruto spoke. Because I want to be like you. Shisui had heard everything he needed to. Good. Then back to taijutsu. Itachi. Shisui. The Uchiha heir began. How was he? The elder clansman's eyes shut as he smiled gently. While his love for his brother only outdid Itachi's affection for the village, amongst them all, there were very few in which he invested his thoughts. Quiet. Very quiet. The Jonin admitted mournfully, but I won't let that continue. He holds many similarities to you. How so? It was until Sasuke was born that you lacked a goal or purpose, he is the same. Itachi honestly hoped that no one would be like him. When he looked at his reflection, it left a lot to be desired. I do not have his strength, so I could never be like him. Itachi reasoned. But I agree, please continue to look after him. But, know that Lord Hokage will monitor you. My mother has told me about his protectiveness over Naruto. It is undoubtedly confusing that Lord Hokage is as involved with him as he is. Even with his role. It has nothing to do with his burden. Shisui. Itachi was always a very respectful person. So, for him to interrupt, angrily as well, made his position on the matter clear. What can you tell me, Itachi? Less than I already have, Itachi answered, no hint of remorse in his words. But a truth is that Naruto should be much more connected than he is. While that only left his elder with more questions, Itachi saw no need to mince words. Both boys had been traveling along the Naka River, it had become a meeting place for the pair. Thank you for the help, Itachi. I feel that my image of our little friend is becoming a little clearer. I did not do this for you, Shisui, Itachi confirmed. Then, why? It is not surprising that there are secrets surrounding someone in his position. But what connects you to him? Shisui didn't like the idea of even more secrets hindering his new friend. He didn't know why he suddenly felt a sense of protectiveness towards Naruto. Perhaps his fragility, even he would admit his soft spot for such things. He didn't do it for praise or to feel like a hero, but certain people drew him in. First, it was Itachi, a boy under the thumb of his clan and family. Now, a boy with no family to speak of, who has had to learn to live alone. I should have been an older brother to him, but idiocy took that from us. The older Uchiha did not need to be reminded of his best friend's distaste for human nature. Regardless, Itachi sighed. As I am more aware of his situation, I have been told not to force a relationship with him. But you want me to introduce him to you? Shisui interjected with no hidden amusement. Sometimes you are not as sneaky as people say, Itachi. As a recently promoted chunin who was habitually silent unless necessary, the Uchiha heir already had an impressive reputation. But I was going to introduce the two of you anyway. As I said, he is like you. He could feel his friends want to protest that statement. As little as you think of yourself, he could learn a lot from you. He could learn more from you, Itachi proposed. He admired his older brother figure. Perhaps, the Jonin shrugged nonchalantly. But do not disregard yourself, you will be a crucial figure amongst this village. If you don't see the benefit for yourself, see the benefit for him. Benefit? Itachi queried. A prodigious boy who is also the heir of the village's strongest clan. One regarded for his maturity and decision so much that he became a chunin when most are just graduating from the academy. With his current trajectory, his worst outcome is clan head, his best. Shisui trailed off as he noticed his junior had stopped walking. Well, I'm sure you can answer that. His companion had frozen still, already answering Shisui's suggestion. Hokage, there would be no problem in protecting his younger brother, Sasuke. Him or Naruto? That is very presumptuous of you, Shisui. Many would disagree with an Uchiha in that position, and we are yet to prove whether that is with or without reason. Shisui could only sigh at his friend's less than bleak outlook on life. You call yourself realistic, I call you pessimistic. If you were to work for that position and obtain it, would that not help mend issues surrounding our clan? A smile curved Itachi's lips, sad or hopeful, Shisui would never know. It will never be so simple. While people are often fickle, they are also obstinate. Ever the philosopher, Itachi. Shisui quipped, but you should have more faith in people. I suppose, Itachi relented. He could admit that the shinobi, current and retired, were much more open-minded than civilians. It was only a lack of experience, maybe he couldn't fault them. Regardless, for what you can do for Naruto now, I would like for you to help with his training. Shisui offered. Specific topics often caused Itachi to lose his head, if not his demeanor. He has immense power, more than me and you together. Your fighting style is centered on control and precision. Even if he can't match you, you might impart some of your meticulous nature. He must be unique, if not, you wouldn't inform me of such occasions. Itachi returned, no less intrigued by the opportunity. He is, Shisui agreed assuredly. He is no genius like you, but his mind is like a steel trap. There is no first attempt success, but it was ridiculous. Progress in taijutsu was scary. Itachi managed to hide his smirk. How so? His physical prowess was astounding. He finished my warm-up, as tired as he was. Every day, he completed it, less tired than the day before. Then we ran through taijutsu styles, all day. Shisui stressed, his adoration visible to the young chunin. He has trained with you for 2 weeks now. As soon as he finishes the academy, I've heard he's gone. So, what have you taught him? Sasuke had told him of an odd blonde boy, a quiet boy, who as soon as class was over bolted in the direction of the Uchiha compound. He might not be able to fight back or defend yet, but I doubt that anyone his age could touch him. Maybe he could even dodge some genin. Hands on hips, Grin wrapped around his face. Shisui was the image of a proud sibling. While I don't believe you would lie, I find that hard to believe, Itachi said, somewhat humored by his actions. I'll have to see for myself then, wouldn't you? Both Uchiha had identical smirks. Sasuke, the younger brother of the child prodigy, Itachi Uchiha. Even the shadow of expectation in leading the clan was shorter than the one made by his elder brother. Even with that, coupled with his father's constant disappointment in his lack of skill, he couldn't help but love his older brother. Big brother, you're home. Itachi couldn't keep the small smile hidden as he slid their home's front door closed. Always, Sasuke. His younger brother was his world. The fact that Sasuke rejoiced in his company and celebrated his return to the house was the shining light in his gray life. Come now, Sasuke, came the soothing voice of the brother's mother. Your brother returned from his mission today, he can talk to you after he rests. The grip on Itachi's shirt loosened, his brother's downcast features beginning to retreat to his room. I'm fine, mother, he remedied before turning to Sasuke. Go to your room, Sasuke. I'll meet with you after putting my gear away. The young academy student didn't need to be told twice. In a bolt of blue, he vacated the room. What is it, Itachi? The eldest son often cursed how perceptive Makoto, his mother, was. When he skipped attending the academy to train with Shisui, she'd known. She never brought it up, but the hints weren't so well hidden. Shisui has invited me to train soon. That itself was a more than a regular occurrence, but it wouldn't just be the pair partaking. Oh, I thought you had seen him recently, why the occasion? Itachi would wish that that sickeningly sweet and knowing smile would just say that she knew. He's introducing me to someone, a new friend of his. He didn't want this to draw out. His mother, while never outright scary, could always worry someone into an early grave. Who would that be? Might I know him? The clan heir's stress built as he let out a tired sigh. Don't make me say it, he thought while holding out little hope. He remained silent for as long as possible before it became awkward. Maybe she would lose interest. Well, Itachi, she prodded, breaking the quiet. What a foolish dream, he thought exasperatedly before facing his mother. Naruto Uzumaki. Itachi, Makoto attempted to cut in, sternly. I did not force it or approach him, therefore, this is a natural progression. You are walking on thin ice, Itachi, do not let his calm demeanor fool you. Lord Hokage is a fierce man, that and other citizens will be less than thrilled with you barging in. Makoto did not want it to come across as a scolding, she just wanted the best for both boys involved. Both of their sons. As I said, mother, I did not force it. The oldest pressed. But, that does not mean that I will not let this slip. Itachi, she cried, frightening herself in the process. Taking a deep breath, she realized her growing emotions, which would not help deal with Itachi. Please let sleeping dogs lie, what if something happened to either of you? Do you know what that would do to me, what that might have done to Ku? Big brother, came the pleading voice of the family's youngest, his head poking around the corner. He did not like the sight. Big brother and mother were fighting, the two best people in his life were fighting, that was just wrong. They were both so kind. Sasuke, I believe our mother was right. I am quite tired. I'll make sure to walk you to the academy tomorrow, but I can't tonight. He usually would refuse to draw his younger brother into a life like his, but on this occasion, he was left with a sour taste in his mouth after disappointing young Sasuke. But big brother, you said you would, you promise, a two-finger prod to the forehead stopped his rant. Ow, that hurt. Forgive me, Sasuke, maybe next time. Sasuke hated that, his brother always shrugged him off, then asked for forgiveness. All that said, there was no one else in the world that Sasuke would let brush him off. Itachi, even with all the faults that he saw, was still his idol, from the skills he'd seen and the constant praise he received from their father. Itachi once questioned him on his adoration, his answer was simple. Because I want to be like you. He never saw the strained smile on his brother's face after he'd said those words. Hiruzen. The aged Hokage reclined into his seat. At his age, stress did him no good. He already had white hair. Was that not enough for his teammates? He studied his council, his old teammates. During the First Great Ninja War, it was a much more militant time as it was soon after the Warring States period. The second Hokage led Homura Mitokado and Koharu Uchiha alongside Hiruzen Sarutobi as Team Tobirama. During a mission in what is now known as the Land of Hot Springs, they were accompanied by an escort unit. This squad contained Danzo Shimura, Kagami Uchiha and Torafu Akamichi. When surrounded by multiple shinobi by the opposing village hidden by the clouds, Hiruzen had offered to sacrifice himself for the rest of the team to escape. This had never been Tobirama's goal. He would never let anyone sacrifice themselves for him, not as the Hokage or a Senju. He intended to determine his successor as the third Hokage, and due to his lack of hesitation, the Sarutobi had been chosen. It was no secret that Danzo had been left bitter due to his fear, leading to his failure to become the village leader. Why have we gathered today? The Hokage asked, not taking his eyes off his village. Do not play the fool, Hiruzen. We all know why we are here. The old member of the Shimura clan was quick to interject. He despised that some peace-loving fool had taken what should have been his role. In his eyes, Hiruzen allowed the village not only to appear weak but to weaken. Then enlighten me, Danzo. As far as I am aware, there have been no issues that require your inclusion. The male council member twirled the cane in his hands as he reined in his growing anger. You have allowed our Jinchuriki to become acquainted with an Uchiha. Why has this been allowed to happen? To this, Homura slid his glasses back onto this bridge of his nose as he looked towards his leader. I must agree, while I do believe it is for the best that he has gained connections within the village, and Uchiha seems unnecessarily worrisome. Indeed, came the word from his final advisor. The increasing suspicion already surrounding their possible involvement in the incident and to now be linked to the product of such. We seem to be stirring the hornet's nest. You are not wrong, the Sarutobi placated. But would it not be good for their image if they help raise Naruto to be a strong ninja for our village? It might solve how the village sees both parties. That isn't the problem here. Hiruzen, the village's leader, often questioned his sanity when he gave such a role to his old friends. Danzo always made him question this. He wasn't ignorant towards the council members' misdeeds. He simply indulged himself as he believed that it was always for the village's best. You question whether we should allow Naruto with the Uchiha clan as you fear that they might curve his loyalty towards them, away from the village. Is it not the least possible situation, is it? Koharu pointed out, still yet to open her eyes. Tobirama-sensei lectured us multiple times about Madara's ability to control the fox. Most of our generation and those after us know of the Sharingan's abilities. I wouldn't put it past the many to think of this as yet another attempt to control it. There was nothing that proved an Uchiha was at fault 5 years ago, Koharu returned Hiruzen sharply. The edge was not lost on his council members. No need to rile yourself up, Hiruzen. I did not say anything of the sort. Do not take me for a fool, Koharu. I might be older than you, but I am no more senile. Out of my teammates, I am the only one to continue looking after my body and mind. None missed his implications. Even the bandaged eye could see what he meant. We agree with her. We believe that we should limit his contact with the Uchiha. When he is a shinobi, an Uchiha to accompany him won't be stopped. The gravelly voice of Homura cut in. I see. I don't like that you have been meeting without me, your commanding officer, and making decisions without me. His stern features softened as he gave a welcoming smile. But luckily I'm the one who makes the decisions. I would rather not have to deal with old friends. Danzo did not react, though his two fellow advisors visibly recoiled at their teammate's declaration. Do not fret. We have no such intentions. But as your counsel, we advise that you look into this. We cannot have our Jinchuriki influenced by detrimental sources. Homura continued. I've heard that Shisui intends to introduce him to Itachi. I will talk to the pair of them. I will not need any of you to be present or any representatives. That time Danzo did react, even if it was only a shuffle of the foot. Do not be lenient, Hiruzen. Those two are well regarded amongst their clan. That in the village, both are seen as the future of Leaf Shinobi. I am well aware of that, Danzo. I actually have little interest in splitting the group. Despite your worries, aside from Kakashi and Jiraiya, who know Minato's work best. Hiruzen often enjoyed the back and forth with Danzo, they kept his mind sharp. Speaking of Hitaki, he will be ending his ANBU duties soon, he already has had an extended spell in the shadows. I believe that an introduction to young Naruto after he returns to work as a Jonin would be best for his mental state. I agree, Homura and Kaharu would both admit their shock with their partner's acceptance. Do not think that I'm merely here to disagree with you, Hiruzen. While I understand the importance of civilians in trade, I believe that the strength of the village is shown through their military power. You have constantly refused my offer to train our Jinchuriki. But Kakashi, as a well-recognized shinobi, his influence can certainly be positive. I will support this decision. Now, that is all, I must leave. Naruto. The academy hadn't changed for Naruto, not at all. The young Uzumaki had taken to the recesses of the back corner of the room. He was yet to talk to anyone, even his Chunin sensei. While many would think that not responding to your teacher would be problematic, they would be wrong. In fact, it was best he didn't talk to them. His sensei ignored him in return. 5 months into the academy, Naruto had well and truly learned his standing in the academy. His unofficial sensei, Shisui, had taken to running him through some basic history. And apparently, the shaggy-haired Uchiha had been quite amused in boy's interest in the late 4th Hokage. In reality, like all young children, he'd taken a liking to legendary ninja and not just those of the leaf. The second Tsuchikage, Mew of the particle style, the third Kazekage, Otome of the magnet style, and finally, Hiruzen Sarutobi, just to name a few. While this was the case, Shisui stressed that while they might have been powerful shinobi, they did not always fight for the right reasons. Basic history came easy to him, recent history outside of the Namikaze was somewhat more complicated. Fortunately for most, ninjutsu grading did not occur until the second year of the academy. That didn't mean that practice was held off until then, the sensei actually encouraged this to speed up the acquiring of skills. He can't say that he enjoyed the academy and shown the possibility of early graduation intrigued him. When Shisui told him that he would be introduced to a close friend and another early graduate, he steeled himself to talk to the older boy. Currently, Naruto and Shisui found themselves in the Elder's Garden. The Sharingan wielder had halted any training until this, Itachi, arrived. Being impatient, the blonde had wanted to protest but decided against it. Instead, he sat in a meditative position attempting to stick a leaf to his forehead. Not an exercise that his unofficial sensei had told him, this was textbook academy. He should be here soon, Shisui insisted. He was just collecting his younger brother from the academy. I believe you might know that boy, Sasuke Uchiha. He noticed the frown that marred his friend's features. Naruto didn't like that boy. He knew of the young Uchiha and was less than amused with the boy's nature. The boy, while never outright demanding it, hungered for attention. Well, you'll find that his older brother and he are nothing alike. Itachi can be quite odd, but you should come to like him. Shisui hadn't said that of anyone yet. I will see to that, the older boy smiled. Naruto had become comfortable speaking around him. At first, it was a few words barely audible. Now it was few words with growing confidence. When Shisui asked him about this, he'd been unable to get a solid answer, just an embarrassed boy. Maybe Shisui expected too much from the poor boy. He is a genius beyond comprehension. While I'm stronger, I believe that is only due to our age difference. Naruto fought to hide his surprise. Shisui was scarily talented. When only using minimal effort, Naruto lost track of the older boy. I know. While he left the academy at 7 like me, most say it was a late graduation. To that Naruto frowned once more. This friend of Shisui's garnered so much praise. Call him selfish, but he wished that soon he would be the sole source of the young Jonin's pride. Itachi, the oldest, seemed to speak into the wind. Shisui, he spoke, sliding out from behind a nearby fence. He turned to the young boy who had ever so slightly slid behind the older Uchiha's leg. Hello Naruto, Shisui has told me much about you. Blinking, Naruto gave a nod of the head, letting it hang almost undetectably so. Hello, that was all Naruto could force out. Speaking to new people was a tiring exercise. The Chunin returned the nod in silence. Shisui asked me to oversee your training, provide another point of view, Itachi informed. Naruto's image of the older boy was improving steadily. The boy looked at him with no discernible emotions and did not hesitate in talking to him. Exactly, as incredible of a teacher as I am, even I am flawed. But Itachi here is not, therefore a wonderful frame of reference. Said the oldest boy, eyes crinkled shut in a smile. Shisui, the younger Uchiha, sighed. The Jonin's behavior, often refreshing, could be draining. Ah, don't be like that, Itachi. I did help teach you, after all. If said boy weren't so grateful for the help, he would have retorted with something smart. Nevertheless, that is true. Shisui has helped my growth in the past and now still. I have been told that I can have a very objective, both Shisui, and I believe this can apply to your growth too. Shisui coughed. Once he had the young Uzumaki's attention, he motioned to the clan heir. That and we have different strengths. Itachi is best with genjutsu and weapons, mainly shuriken. He's good at ninjutsu too, but he's a fan of more subtle fighting. Afterwards, he prodded his chest with his thumb. I, on the other hand, am best with ninjutsu and taijutsu. My kenjutsu is also quite advanced, and I'm best with short blades. Though I won't lie, I have come across a small niche in genjutsu. The young blonde liked the sound of both styles of fighting but held his tongue. While you might not have a natural affinity towards my style of combat, the best fighters are continually learning. Whether that be through training or battling enemies. The impassive face of the Uchiha prodigy held firm as he continued. Naruto could accept that. It wasn't long before the trio had reached Shisui's backyard. As a spectator, the oldest of them sat out of the fray. Well, let's begin. Itachi did not beckon as Shisui did. His arms hung by his side, though, not lamely. Just relaxed. Not nearly as calm. Naruto too remained still but in a readied stance. Patience, Itachi assessed. Good. Faster than Shisui had ever been, the younger Uchiha pressed his opponent. Instinctively, the young Uzumaki leapt backwards. The first rule in evasion, if there isn't any, put distance between you and your opponent. His older friend's words ringing in his head. Unfortunately, Itachi refused to release his pressure and was on him in an instant. The black-haired boy flung a kick at Naruto's knees and much to his surprise, instead of forfeiting movement by leaping in the air, he dropped. Blonde hair dragged along the grass as the sweeping kick went overhead. Interesting, Itachi redirected his foot to scissor down on the prone boy. Pushing away, Naruto left enough space for the young Chunin advance. Seeing his opportunity, Itachi attempted to keep the Uzumaki off balance by throwing a rapid set of punches finishing in a palm strike to the chest. Not willing to test himself against his elder's strength, Naruto contorted to avoid every hand. Your speed is impressive. All the muscles in Itachi's right side engaged as he took a broad swipe to the left side Naruto's midsection. Narrow cobalt eyes spotted the blatant attack. Using what speed he had, the blonde bolted around the right side of his opponent. Itachi closed his eyes and sighed inwardly. As inventive as the boy was, he still felt for the most obvious of ploys. Like most Uchiha, closing his eyes was his mistake. When he followed his opponent's movements and looked behind himself, Itachi was greeted with vacant space. As he tracked the rest of the circle, his left knee gave out. Itachi's furrowed brow was visible as he gazed over his collapsing form. Naruto's forearm had buried itself in the back of his opponent's knee. Using the foreign momentum, the Uchiha heir gripped Naruto's high collar as he folded backwards. Throwing the black-clad boy, Itachi returned to his feet. "We're done here," came the authoritative voice of the Chunin. Rolling to a stop, Naruto groaned as fought to stand up once again. "Maybe we need to return to your training, he had you on ice for a moment there." A small twitch in the 10-year-old's eye encouraged Shisui. "Shut up, Shisui," muttered out an embarrassed Itachi. "I won't hear the end of this, will I?" He didn't need an answer, Shisui is Shisui after all. Nodding in agreement, the oldest of the trio could only wish for more moments like this. "Well, Itachi, what is your supreme analysis?" exaggerated the young Jonin, bowing deeply. A soft giggle escaped the small blonde's lips, prompting both older boys to smile. "I suppose it can be allowed, this time," Itachi reasoned to himself. "You didn't tell me that he could fight back." The Uchiha heir began, his voice holding a coat of praise. "Would you have believed me?" Shisui pointed an amused and knowing finger towards his fellow clansmen. As the older pair rambled on, Naruto retreated into his collar as he had just one thought. "It's like I'm not even here," he regretfully admitted. "What do you think, Naruto?" Shisui's voice cut through the blonde's thoughts like a hot knife through butter. Flustered and embarrassed that he'd been caught unawares, he muttered a soft, "I don't know." "You know, you've really got to talk to us more. We're all here for you, you know." Cursing his emotions, Naruto nodded vigorously. "We'd believed that Shisui could start teaching you the basics of ninjutsu on top of your taijutsu. My specialty is weaponry, so, when I'm able, I can help you." Naruto had learned never to look a gift horse in the mouth. It was a consequence of this being only the third occasion. So instead, he let the excitement control him. "Really?" Once again, the older pair's mouth quirked upwards. Somehow this boy had retained a child's life. That was strength. "Really?" Shisui assured. "Now let us return to Itachi being beaten by someone half his age." "I was not being beaten. Now you what it was like for everyone who fought you." "I was not being beaten," the prodigy repeated tiredly. "I'm not sure whether it is just my imagination or not, but I believe somewhere," Itachi compared Naruto to Shisui. "This thought is where this idea stems from. What if Naruto offered help by someone who is like him?" The quote, from Harry Chapin, to me, has a lot of parallels with the relationship between Sasuke and Itachi. A seemingly inattentive role model and a devoted admirer who strive to be like their role model. While Itachi is extremely attentive, his seeming aloofness towards Sasuke acts like fuel for his fire instead of deterring the younger sibling. Tailed beasts, enormous chakra constructs, beings of destruction. There are 9 tailed beasts in total, each with differing characteristics, behaviors and habitats. The prominent and most distinguishing trait is the number of tails each has, ranging from the 1-tailed raccoon to the 9-tailed fox. Generations ago, they were collected by the leader of the Senju clan and founding Kage. The first Hokage and master of his legendary wood-style mustered 8 of the tailed beasts and ventured to gift them to the newly made villages to attempt peace. As the hidden sand was already in possession of the 1-tailed sand spirit, they requested supplies instead. The first Hokage sold the hidden cloud, the 2-tailed cat and 8-tailed ox. The 3-tailed turtle and 6-tailed slug were bargained off to the hidden mist village. The 4-tailed monkey and 5-tailed horse were shipped to the hidden stone, and finally, the last remaining highest bidder was a minor nation. The hidden waterfall received the 7-tailed rhinoceros beetle. The 9-tailed fox remained in the hidden leaf. As these monstrous sources of power were almost impossible to contain, a ninja from every village turned to sealing. Fuinjutsu, a rare shinobi art that required intense amounts of patience, but those who've utilized it to greater degrees would wax lyrical about its benefits in everyday life and the battlefield. With the raw power that the tailed beasts contained, they required humans to be the sealing medium. People who contained a tailed beast were called Jinchuriki. It was common knowledge that the hidden leaf possessed the 9-tailed fox. But details of its location and Jinchuriki had been hidden from everyone, including the hidden leaf's residents. This knowledge gap mainly was disregarded as out of sight, out of mind. But that changed after a tragic incident not long after the Third Great Ninja War. The Nine Tails attack. It was a terrifying experience they had ever been put through for most citizens, when a vulpine that towers over their Hokage monument appears suddenly in a cloud of smoke and begins wreaking havoc upon their homes. A single swipe of one of its 9 tails can raise tsunamis and flatten mountains. That is what most were told about the magnificent beast. Much to the horror of all who were there that day, that statement rang all too true. Minato Namikaze, the fourth and current Hokage, decided to take the tailed beast head-on. Being a master of Fuinjutsu, and after exhausting his abilities to transport the fox away from his village, he resorted to his final option. A small child, born mere moments before the calamity, was chosen to shoulder the burden. Unfortunately, Minato wouldn't survive the encounter and imparted his wishes to his predecessor, Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage. The boy was to be regarded as a hero, a savior, even more than Minato was. That was what he wanted, for the boy to grow up surrounded by the village. Unfortunately, both Hokage, past and present, did not think of the public's reaction, especially just after a horrifying incident that claimed hundreds of lives. The boy was not treated as a hero as both wished, not even close. As the boy's parents perished that night, he was resigned to living in his own apartment. With the help of Hiruzen, he could afford basic living expenses. He could spend his money on rent, electricity, water and gas were paid for by the shinobi offices. Life did not come easy for the 5-year-old boy. He wasn't blamed for the incident, but people could no longer trust the word of the higher-ups when they said it would be safe. Simply put, many refused to risk being near the boy. When the time eventually came that the fox would break free, the risk was just too high. For most, ignorance was strength, and who could blame them? People fear what they don't understand, and when a raging monster had taken the lives of your fellow villagers as then locked within a child, the citizens found it best to avoid him. Someone as mentally malleable as a child can react to isolation in many ways. Questioning the lack of acknowledgement from the villagers, this boy became meek and latched onto the one person who truly saw him. Hiruzen, despite his poor decision in allowing the secret to become public knowledge, refused to abandon the boy. Now, this boy had found more people to take solace in and someone to respect and aspire to be alike. Shisui was the next in the so far tragic story that was this boy's life. When he found a boy that stopped himself from entering a shop to merely enjoy its aroma, most would come to similar conclusions when sifting through the possibilities. So he offered a hand to the boy, and both now refused to let go. It was no secret who this boy was. His golden shock of hair was a permanent reminder. So were the azure orbs that set their curious gaze upon everything. Finally, the whiskers, the 3 marks on each cheek, for many, only affirmed their misguided beliefs. This boy was Naruto Uzumaki. Hiruzen. Ah, welcome, Shisui, Itachi. The pair of clansmen strode into the village leader's office with no air of fear or pensiveness. They knew why they were there. It was only a matter of time. Lord Hokage, they both addressed. Shisui bowed, Itachi did not. I presume you both know why I have for you both, Hiruzen began. His tone did not waver, it still held its grandfatherly warmth. Yes sir, Shisui spoke for both of them. Smoke wafted from the wooden pipe that the old Sarutobi held in front of him. Then, I must ask. What are your plans for young Naruto? To help, much like you. Was the stoic Uchiha's response. It was cruel, but he didn't care. The Hokage inwardly recoiled at Itachi's words. He would admit, he was somewhat detached when aiding Naruto. Please elaborate. You must understand, with Naruto, that something like this worries me. Itachi was not heartless enough to presume that Hiruzen didn't care. If he didn't, Naruto would likely be with a very different part of their village by now. Lord Hokage, Shisui had little interest in being restricted from seeing Naruto. While you may worry about the bond that Itachi and I have with Naruto, it is there, and if not for my sake, then for his, I urge you to not separate us from him. True, I cannot deny that, but please understand my concerns. Both Uchiha understood perfectly. I do, Lord Hokage, I do. After spending the last few weeks with him, I fully understand what you mean. Shisui pressed honestly. But, that must also mean you understand my concerns. He is a young boy with nothing. I don't believe he would admit it, but I'm sure that he holds his bonds as the most valuable parts of his life. That is to be expected when people refuse to see him. Itachi's disdain for the civilians' treatment seeped through into his speech. Please do not blame them, they do not know any better. Hiruzen attempted to reason, though he couldn't help to agree. It's not them that I blame, Lord Hokage, Itachi impassively insisted. Then who do you blame? The young mind of Itachi Uchiha was a thing of wonder to many of the village. Being introduced to the horrors of war as a young child, the shinobi world forced him to mature faster than any child should. Those who know about who Naruto truly is and still refuse to look at him. Itachi knew, that was a sobering fact. The fact that he spoke of who Naruto is and not what he is. Those you speak of lost a lot that day, too, you must allow them their time to grieve. The old Sarutobi forced himself to be strong enough to look after Naruto, even when he himself was drowning in guilt. They have taken a family away from him, more so than that day did. Shisui was content in allowing Itachi to vent his frustrations towards the Hokage. His younger friend was an introspective person, he lived in his own head. He would likely implode if he remained silent. But if he could help Naruto more by knowing who he was, he would try. I have already gathered that mountains of secrets surround Naruto, and you might not think it's my place to know, and I don't want to impede, but, gathering his breath, the special Jonin continued before he fell short. For the role I intend to play in his life, I must know. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes at his subordinate. What role do you intend to play in his life? The familial warmth did not smooth over Hiruzen's discontent. A family, Lord Hokage, a family. I met a young boy who couldn't handle someone coming up to speak to him. Do you know he tried to run away when I said hello? I was unaware, the Hokage regretfully admitted while inwardly interrogating himself. Had Naruto recessed that much, he always seemed so cheerful when they talked in his office. Was that because Naruto was comfortable around him, or was it an act? Ever since then, with no lack of pushing, Naruto talks to me when we train, he listens to me. I can still tell he doesn't fully trust me, he still hesitates to respond. That's not how any child should be, acknowledgement is a foreign idea to him. So I wish to know how and who could strip that from him, I wish to understand that. I wish I could tell everyone of these things, but it would put Naruto in an even more precarious position. Neither Uchiha could fathom a position in which Naruto's life can be worsened. He's treated as if his existence is a pox upon the lives of others, his self-worth has been crushed beyond comprehension. Do not think for a second that I am merely sitting here twiddling my thumbs as a young boy is forced into a solitary life. Of course, Lord Hokage. Shisui amended with growing impatience. But you did not say why you could not tell me alone about just who Naruto is. Your ears and mind are as sharp as those eye of yours, Shisui. Though, before that, Itachi, how have you come across this knowledge? The kindly village leader asked. Aunt Kushina, during pregnancy, often came to our house to ask questions of mother. How could I forget? Hiruzen chuckled, his wonder satiated. Naruto. Training with Shisui and occasionally Itachi had become the high point of his days. Not only could he train a lot, but he could also spend more time with his new friends. Today though, it sucked, not because he couldn't touch his opponent, he was used to that, but Shisui wasn't even paying attention to him. The unspoken insult to his skills didn't hurt as much as the Uchiha's recent behavior. Had he pushed one of the few people he had away, was he not good enough? Did Shisui just not like him? As Naruto sunk deeper into his pit of thoughts, the sparring ended wordlessly. Without Naruto as the aggressor, his opponent did not need to evade or counter. It took some moments until the older of the pair realized what had happened. Why'd you stop? The Sharingan wielder vocally pondered. I know you're not tired. The weary smile that Shisui wore only dampened his partner's mood. Golden locks draped of the young Uzumaki's features, seeing his younger friend's state, Shisui took a step forward but was cut off before he could speak. Did I do something wrong? His breathing hitched when an answer didn't come quickly enough. Naruto confirmed all of his doubts. He'd screwed up, someone had let him in, and he'd disappointed them. The crushing feeling only deepened. That was until a hand reached out. That hand, not much larger than his own, stretched out, from a height above him. Landing on his shaggy blonde hair, it nestled amongst the gold and slowly massaged the top of his head. Of course not, don't be silly. Shisui continued to ruffle his hair. He knew that Naruto just needed some reassurance. There is nothing right now that you could do to push me away, you got that? A small bop on the head to emphasize his point. Swiveling the younger boy by his head, he squatted down and looked all over Naruto's black-clad body. Then, Naruto paused, turning his big blue desperate eyes towards Shisui. This is bad, big brother isn't like this. What's wrong? That was the moment in which Shisui decided why he wanted to look after Naruto. This little boy, even after the treatment he'd received, sought to help anyone he could. As wrong as it is, this little boy saw his pain as secondary, everyone else came first. Naruto, Shisui spoke softly, he knew it was selfish, but he had just one request. Never change. The black-haired boy grinned widely, pressing down the spiky locks on the younger boy's head. For a few moments, confusion was written all over Naruto's face. Not before long, though, did it once again match the bright smile Shisui wore. You got it, Shishi. The tiny blonde exclaimed, looking past the hand on his head. Shisui gripped Naruto's head and, with little effort, he flipped the younger boy over himself. Rolling to a halt, the academy student raised his head just enough to see the challenging smirk that always arose whenever they sparred. Time ticked on as Naruto and Shisui exchanged feet and hands. Eventually, they delved into ninjutsu, and the prodigy was reminded that his new friend was still a child even with his moments of maturity. You know, my superiors won't let me forget my nickname. His chuckle filled with humored sarcasm. Sorry, moniker. He reminded himself. Kotetsu and Azuma were relentless in their teasing when it was added to his bingo book entries. Nickname? Naruto parroted curiously, with wide eyes. Shisui of the body flicker, or Shisui the teleporter. Said ninja waved off the international recognition with practiced nonchalance. It's great for our village to have people who are recognized by opposing nations, as it can be a deterrent for attacks and conflict in general. That, as well as they, can be very influential in negotiations. Feeling that Naruto's attention was solely on him, the young Uchiha kept raveling. Just like my superiors, when I was recognized, it became an unspoken responsibility. So while most strive for that fame, it's hard to maintain that respect. It took Shisui a second to realize that Naruto probably couldn't keep up with what he was saying. But don't worry about that, you're a few years off anything like that. But Shishi, Naruto groaned pleadingly, blue eyes sparkling in desperation. No, even I wasn't as young as you are now when I graduated. To be a better shinobi in person, patience is essential. It was hard for both to hear, but the Uchiha mentor knew that negative feedback would eventually be necessary. You only managed what you did against Itachi because he underestimated you. That won't happen when fighting against enemy ninja. They will try to destroy you, they will not stop until they can't move or breathe. It was a chilling truth, and once again, Shisui knew the little blonde needed to hear this. Slightly deflated, the young Uzumaki tried to think about what to say but was halted by a ruffle of his spiky locks. But don't worry, if the older noticed Naruto's attempt to speak up, he didn't let on. That's why you've got big brother Shisui. He prodded his chest with his thumb as his teeth shone. Even if it takes forever, I'll be there. Shishi. Naruto muttered in awe, even Gramps had never told him something like that. It was the best pain he'd ever felt. A new warmth thawed away at the chilled grip in his chest. A toasty heat made him wince, but just like before, when they were at that small ramen stand, this pain was so much easier to bear. Time stood still for the blonde as he watched his older friend's unkempt hair whip against his face. Shisui Uchiha, Naruto's guide, shining light, goal and family. Naruto was no longer getting stronger for himself. No, he needed to get stronger for Shisui, to make him proud, to protect him. Don't get too hung up on this pointless comment. Now, why I started talking about this was I wanted to teach you something. This requires a lot of speed, something you are naturally gifted with, so hopefully, this technique should come easily to you. Also, with all that chakra you've got, you might not even need to limit yourself once you've got it down. While the recesses of Naruto's self-declaration were being shed, the prospect of a new technique began racing through his mind. A favorite of mine, signature, you could say. The body flicker technique is a highly versatile skill. You can use this for travel, or like me, it can be a handy tool in battle. Before Naruto could demand anything, the special Jonin held a one-handed ram seal to his chest. Attempting to close in on his older brother figure, the little Uzumaki lunged forward to grip Shisui. But it didn't end in his favor as his self-appointed sensei blurred out of existence. In an impressive show of speed, the Uchiha prodigy reappeared upon a nearby tree branch and watched as his younger brother comically stumbled and tried to regain his balance. Stifling a chuckle, the blonde's head whipped around to glower at Shisui. This action overcame Shisui's defenses, and he could only guffaw at the offended boy. Shishi, he hollered with an accusatory finger. Don't do that, it's so annoying. That, along with the constant ruffling of hair, Naruto found immensely irritating, those actions he could do without. You know you love it, he returned effortlessly. He did not, leaping down to meet. He did not. Naruto growled at his offender, you always do it just to laugh at me. Ah, don't say that, Shisui played as he waved away the charge. I'd never do something like that, who do you think I am? A mean old brother, Naruto pouted before coming to a realization. But you can repay me by teaching me that awesome jutsu. Shisui raised an eyebrow at the young Uzumaki. Is that all is it? Not going to ask for a different one, maybe a more flashy technique, fire style. He tempted. He could imagine Naruto demanding something like that. He'd appeared quite intrigued by their combating pyrotechnics. But Naruto hesitated at his words and began to study the ground. But, you said that the flicky thing was your jutsu. He recounted with clenched fists. I did, is that it? You want to be just like big brother Shisui, he jested slyly. Nah, I wanna be better, and then you'll call me big brother. Ya got that, he proclaimed only for the corners of Shisui's eyes in warmth then narrowed deviously. Not a chance, the older boy retorted seamlessly, drawing out the silence before finishing. Mini-me, for an unknown period, one would find themselves quite amused if they entered training ground too. A 5-year-old moving at ridiculous speeds in an attempt to catch a cackling special Jonin. Itachi. The young Chunin had always been wary of other people. People were unknowns. While he was quite skilled in reading body language and facial expressions, he still couldn't see what was going on inside their head. When that is the case, that person is a threat to him. To Sasuke. So when a renowned Anbu operative strolls up to him and not so subtly shows interest in his and Shisui's newest venture, he grew cautious. Kakashi, Shogi is a game to improve one's tactical ability, but that is not the game you are playing right now. Unless you are in need of something, I much prefer to train alone. Itachi's impassive voice only added to the evident irritation. Easy. I'm just curious, that's all. Jet Black met a single dark gray eye, the emotionless gaze, one of practiced boredom. Yes, I'm more than aware that you are curious about Naruto. But, why? Cracks of almost fatigue crept into his voice. I have my reasons. No, why now? Taking an imperceptible breath to calm himself, Itachi turns from the armor-clad shinobi to his set of targets. He fully understood the need for respect in the chain of command, but he also knew when and where it was necessary. Why are you taking an interest in him now? Why not back then? The last thing any child needs is an unstable influence in their life. I would not put that on any child, let alone Naruto. The silver-haired ninja voiced with gravity. That does not answer the question. Itachi cut in again, patience quickly fading. Turning his head to study where his third kunai landed, half an inch off, pitiful. Last I understood, you still feared him, so I want to know why now. Kakashi narrowed his gaze at his subordinate. What could I fear about a child? You shouldn't fear him, that's true. So maybe it's not him that you fear, your duty perhaps. I have nothing to fear, the defensive shinobi spoke mostly to himself. So, Hitaki. Why now? Both citizens of the Hidden Leaf's patience had run thin. I'm merely a fellow citizen showing an interest. Kakashi's answer was punctuated by the whistling of a kunai past his singular visible eye. The young Anbu captain leveled a bored gaze, refusing to acknowledge the threat on his life. If that's not good enough for you, though. A restrained sigh escaped the young Uchiha lips as he turned an exasperated look towards his superior. Enjoy attempting to convince Shisui. The only times in which they're not attached at the hip is when either Shisui is on a mission, Naruto is at the academy, in which he's having the same issues me and you have experienced thanks to Shisui's training, or when they're training. While Kakashi found the academy to be detestable because he shot through their system quicker than anyone, a child's life was not on the battlefield. What does the training involve? From what I've heard, Naruto isn't the studious type. Itachi let out what very few would recognize as a groan. While his theoretical practices had improved, his physical prowess far outspans any his age. Itachi's voice carried explicit pleasure, but that quickly soured as he continued. Sasuke came home one day asking if I had heard about a boy his age who beat the paste out of the Inuzuka heir. Naruto, unfortunately, still treats every spar as if he is against Shisui. The senior ninja chuckled at the new information. So Soom's kid did he, might do that clan a world of good. Nothing quite like an Inuzuka with wounded pride. Itachi refused to fall into idle chit-chat with the man, his lax demeanor was just too inviting. You asked now, didn't you? Well, my lovely little subordinate, I simply don't want to lose my chance to be involved in his growth. You wish to help train him? Itachi questioned incredulously. I didn't realize that was what people thought of me. Kakashi lamely bemoaned about his degraded reputation. But I'd heard of two Uchiha's recent undertaking in an infamous academy student. I know when I can help, and as good as the pair of you are, there are some things I can teach him, techniques that you and Shisui could never come across. Out came a small book from the older shinobi's back pocket as Kakashi immediately landed on the right page. I know what I know, you know what you know, and I know what you know. I'll let you figure the rest out. I'll talk to our favorite special Jonin. This isn't because of some sense of duty. Collecting himself, he gave his subordinate a tired look. Will you take up Lord Danzo's offer? While not overly thrilled by the prospect of someone joining the corps who was younger than when he was admitted, he found himself intrigued by the enigmatic Uchiha. Not yet. Perhaps soon, but not yet. Any reason? Kakashi probed, still not facing his fellow Sharingan wielder. There are some things I wish to be in order before I make such decisions. Naruto. The onslaught of intrigue had lost its shine and had turned into something more akin to interrogation. And Sasuke, while I feel like one's academy time will be significantly shorter than the other, neither are yet to acclimatize. If one or both cannot adjust, then I simply wish to help them prepare for life outside of our walls. The wind began to lap at Itachi's face, causing strands of hair to cover his eyes. Well, look at you and me, we never adjusted. The silver-haired man's voice held traces of amusement. I won't presume anything about you, but I don't believe it to be wise for people to use me as the stick to measure themselves. Itachi pointed out flatly. True, I wouldn't wish my life on anyone. As a man who was introduced to a life of trained killing at the age of 5, the young veteran had experienced more than most ever would. I concur, and that is why I must prepare them. I'll play whatever role I must to help them. Even if that means being an obstacle for them to overcome, that's what family is. A few questions made their way into Kakashi's mind, but he thought it best to keep them unasked. I'll be seeing you later. The 19-year-old Anbu strolled past Itachi, his sandals crunching the grass and leaves underfoot. Stopping, he looked at the kunai that was launched earlier before voicing. Half an inch out, you should really work on that. Chakra seeped into his eyes as the left orb twitched violently. His blood-red Sharingan counted the number of ways he could annihilate the lax Hataki. Could I use you as the target? He suggested semi-seriously. Sasuke. The raven-haired 5-year-old trudged along the dirt path back to his home. The training grounds near his compound was his usual haunt, if not home or at the academy. Though his older brother had time, it wouldn't matter where they would be. Sasuke was there, by his Itachi's side. Though his time with his brother was rapidly shortening. His recent promotion to Chunin, and now there was something else, and whatever it was, it put his mother on edge. He couldn't tell if it affected his father. That man seemed to be fazed by nothing. Sasuke walked past the compound's walls and continued on. As he passed his clansmen, some smiled, others waved, and some ignored him. He had grown up receiving mixed greetings. To some, he was the future of their clan, and many hoped he and his brother would lead the clan out of its current rut. The others saw him as a failure. After all, Itachi was scoring almost perfect in the academy and was rumored to be on the cusp of graduating by his age. Thoughtlessly, he pushed into his front door as he let everyone in the house know, "I'm home." "Welcome home, Sasuke." His mother's soft voice always made him happy. While Itachi was his drive to be better, his mother was his support. It made him happy beyond belief. "Thank you, mother." His doting parent poked her head around the corner from the living room to look at him. As if it was routine, she studied his dirtied form before scolding him about training too hard by himself, and then proceeded to lick her thumb and rub the dirt off of his young face. While Sasuke groaned about her excessive parenting, the front door slid open once more to reveal Itachi in his classic black wear. "Hello, Sasuke," he warmly greeted, smiling unconsciously. "Big brother," Sasuke cheered as he wrapped his arms around the firstborn. While he reveled in the grappling of his younger brother, he schooled his features to look at Makoto. "Hello, mother. Itachi. I'm home." Sasuke had told him to apologize to his mother, but he wouldn't. He refused to when he had done nothing wrong. "You are? How are you feeling?" Her smile was there, but it was strained. It hurt to watch her son disregard the dangers of his situation because of his stubbornness. "Tired. Kakashi can be quite assertive. I didn't realize you and him were close." She couldn't help but say, then mentally recoiled. Conversations with her sons were so easy. Why couldn't there just be no animosity between them? "We aren't. I was approached by him today to ask about Naruto. I believe Lord Third must have informed him of what Shisui and I have been doing." Sasuke's young mind effortlessly recalled hearing that name before. Naruto. Who was this person? It always his mother, nervous and defensive, but Itachi refused to leave. What Sasuke learned was a boy, alone. "I see. What did he have to say?" Makoto questioned amicably. "That he wanted to meet Naruto as well as help his training." Itachi was rather curt in his answers, but his mother understood. "And why does that displease you?" "Because the man had 5 years to approach him and did nothing. People who put in no effort deserved nothing in return, such as the case here. While I'm still not pleased, it still took you 5 years to approach him." Sasuke continued to watch as the same argument came up once more, every time there was a new detail. First, it that the topic was a boy, then it was he was someone around his age. "I was told I couldn't approach him, and I doubt that those restrictions would be placed on him, a Jonin." Itachi's friend and fellow clan member had decided to take this boy, who wasn't an Uchiha, under his wing. Itachi had been training him too, and now another person. Just who was this kid? If that is the case, please do not get too involved. I know you're enjoying training him. Big brother, Sasuke exclaimed, this boy was stealing his older brother from him. But you barely train with me, now you're helping someone else. Sasuke would never understand Itachi's reasons for not training him, and that fact brought a sad smile to the elder brother's face. Do not think that I have replaced you, no one could do that. Shisui only requested that I help, he tried to reason. But I ask all the time, and you're always too busy. The younger brother was more saddened than angry. Yes, you do, and I'm sorry that I can't tell you why that is. Neither mother nor sibling couldn't tell that Itachi was genuinely apologetic. Okay. Then but you've gotta make it up to me, some serious training. None of that me watching your stuff, got it? Of course, I'll make time. Itachi wouldn't lie about that. While it is good you wish to correct your brother's faults, I require your presence in our clan meetings so you will not have the time needed for that. Their father and clan head, Fugaku Uchiha, had returned from communications with the village and, as per usual, appeared mildly irritated. While Sasuke deflated slightly, Itachi dutifully responded. Of course, father. As you are now a Chunin, there will be even more responsibilities. We will also talk about what you have been doing with Shisui and Kakashi's recent inclusion. Itachi knew his father would much rather say interference but held his tongue. Of course, father. Hidden Leaf Academy. When Sasuke had asked Itachi about a blonde boy who'd stood out in taijutsu spars of a fellow class, all his brother had said was to pay attention. When Daikoku-sensei told his class that there would be a taijutsu exercise with Kyogi-sensei Sasuke, he became very attentive. And his suspicions were proven correct. As they moved outside, the young Uchiha spotted the other class and zeroed in on a golden-haired boy, sitting right in the middle of the group. The boy was clearly excited. He could almost feel how ready the boy was. Daikoku, you're here. Excellent. I was just explaining to my class that we would have small spars, one from my class against one from yours. Daikoku smiled cheerfully at his colleague before giving the class a passing look. Well, I'm looking forward to it. What neither teachers noticed was the two students staring quizzically at each other. While Sasuke managed to not show it much outwardly, he was clearly studying the other boy. The other put in no such effort as his face contorted in thought. He looks like Itachi, but he shuffled it away as them being from the same clan. Let's get started, shall we? Kyogi voiced, looking forward to some of the later fights. Definitely. Sanaka Anikuma from Kyogi-sensei's class, please step forward. Turning his head to his own students, Renraku Yanagikage, you're up. Represent our class to the best of your abilities. As time passed and students battled to the best of their abilities, Sasuke would steal lingering glances at the golden boy during the fights. He was so caught up in trying to solve the puzzle that he almost didn't hear his homeroom teacher call out. Sasuke, this your turn. Make your family and me proud. As he stripped his eye away from the boy in question filled in what Shisui had told him about Itachi not too long ago. His previous confusion gone, the man turned and raised his gaze over the other class. Naruto, the smile Daikoku flashed made both boys' insides churn. The pair recognized the superficial warmth. Sasuke was shown everywhere he went. No one wanted to antagonize the clan head by insulting his son after all. And well, Naruto didn't need to be told it was fake. Shisui had shown him what a genuine smile looked like. Your turn. So this was the boy that Itachi often spoke about. Adding that to the display he'd been treated to recently, it wasn't hard for Sasuke to piece together that the boy was special. Another clan heir, he thought. It wasn't an illogical guess. You got it, sensei. Deciding to ignore what he felt, he leapt up and jogged over to the ring. Much more collected than his opponent, Sasuke strode over to meet his target, much to the pleasure of the cheering female crowd. More confused than anything, what's so special about him? He'd seen the boy's display in taijutsu previously, and though he wouldn't admit it, he didn't see himself winning. But that didn't justify him taking Itachi away from him. He reasoned that he would be that good if his brother actually trained with him. Now, make the seal of confrontation. It mildly irked Sasuke that his opponent seemed to be disregarding him. Naruto was visibly giddy. He would be sparring with Itachi's brother, a boy his age. He could see where he ranked. If he really was Itachi's brother, this boy had to have trained as much as him. As Naruto raised his right hand, Sasuke raised his left. Coal bored into cobalt as the blonde lowered into his position. At the image of a familiar stance, a small fire ignited itself into his belly. The taijutsu form he'd taken was very similar to a sub-form of the Uchiha's traditional style. That's not he's no Uchiha. Jealousy mixed with injured pride, as Sasuke ignored any fears of Naruto's skill and advanced as quickly as he could manage. Naruto, for his part, saw Sasuke's advance as a decoy and opted to wear the hit. Sasuke's left arm went straight for Naruto's jaw with unbridled fury, only for it to be blocked as the blonde rolled to his left. Naruto's forearm slid down his opponent's arm and gripped him at the shoulder. Wrenching at the limb, Sasuke felt his feet leave the ground as his weight followed his leading hand. Dust accumulated as Sasuke scrambled to not roll out of the sparring ring, fingers drew lines in the dirt as he fought to stand. Unfortunately for Sasuke, Naruto peeked at his opportunity and darted towards the dark-haired boy. Sasuke expected him to stay low and attack his already failing balance, but instead, the smaller boy leapt over him and, with his right hand, gripped the nape of his blue shirt, just above the Uchiha clan symbol. Naruto landed, crouching, and for the second time, Naruto launched his opponent away. Sasuke had no opportunity to remain in the ring as he landed past the peanut gallery. That was Itachi's move, his enraged mind yelled, but before he could charge at his gleeful opponent, Daikoku-sensei's hand landed firmly on his shoulder. Wonderful bout, boys, he professed with the same smile. You both seem to have received some exceptional training. Sasuke, as your sensei, I'm sure your family is very proud of your speed and technique. Naruto continued to beam, but the statement, as well as the apparent gap between him and Naruto, made him spit. Now, make the unison sign. Obliging, Naruto jogged up but was halted when Sasuke hotly turned on him. Not a chance, not with him. The remark caught the blonde off guard. What had he done? Now, Sasuke. The signs of confrontation and unison are a tradition for these spars. The unison sign shows that you have finished your spar and come together as comrades of the hidden leaf. Daikoku attempted to remedy the boy's temper. As Itachi's brother, it wouldn't reflect well to have an outburst in front of other students, they would be likely to speak about it. Sasuke attempted to lash out once more but couldn't move out of his teacher's firm grip. When he tried to glare, all he met was the same smile, this time though he could read some not-so-hidden disappointment. Not good enough, not like your elder brother. Sasuke could almost hear the words that his sensei was thinking. The Uchiha shot one filthy glare at the Uzumaki as his thoughts cleared. When both boys returned to the group, Sasuke received the usual treatment, praise and reassurance from the girls, but he ignored them routinely. Naruto, on the other hand, noticed a few approving glances from the boys. The pair placed themselves at either side of the group with faces set in frowns. They knew where the bar was set. Shisui, the body flicker expert, had been more than impressed with Naruto's recent training. While his skills had been progressing just like before, his mentality had stood out. Itachi had told him of the interaction between the pair at the academy and the rather sour outcome. After a brief conversation of how to talk to the two boys, Shisui decided that not much needed to be said. He didn't want to distract Naruto from his progress. Last time I showed you the body flicker, and I'm sure you went and tried it without me. The tiny blonde gave a weak grin and scratched that annoying itch at the back of his head. But I don't need to ask you to know that you couldn't do it. There was no accusation of low expectations, just a statement of pure fact. But I don't get it. I did the hand signs perfectly, and everything, Naruto impatiently complained. Shisui could do it so effortlessly, and he got nothing. I'm sure you did. Do you think you could show me what you're doing? Shisui appeased. He had his mother help him with the body flicker, so he knew how helpful someone with the Sharingan could be. Why? Naruto groaned. It's not gonna change anything. Humor me. Shisui's voice held its patience. Fine. Closing his eyes, Shisui opened them to reveal